The primary was the mission. The mission in World War II was their superiority. In Korea, it was close air support. That is getting down and dirty into the dirt with the ground troops and protecting them and bombing and strafing and napalming and all that sort of stuff. So uh, the 51 was the worst aircraft in the inventory for the job it was given. P-47 or P-38 would have been much better, but it's multiple. It had eight 50 calibers, and it could carry twice the load as a 51. Our loads were usually well, there were three types of. We'd carry two 500-pound bombs, 4 5-inch rockets, and of course our internal ammunition, or two napalm and 4 5-inch rockets and ammo, and then the third configuration was two external fuel tanks, and then rockets. And the missions with the fuel tanks we would go over Kyoto Island and just loiter over the island and wait for being called. The troops in contact. If the ground troops were having a battle and they needed some air support, well, then we'd be called in and go and do our thing with them. So it was a completely different type of mission. On my one of my early missions, it was the second mission of the day, close air support in the Punch Bowl, and I was bombing and rocketing artillery units firing against. There was a battle between two units, Korean and U.S. units, and so I was coming in on my second pass and pulling off, and I got a big flash in front of me, and my aircraft started vibrating like it was going to fall apart. And I was flying out of K-46, which was at Hangsong, Korea, and we were only about 30 miles from the front lines from the DMZ. So the mission, they weren't that long. They were 45 an hour 50. And anyway, I was fairly close, so I decided I would try to make it back. And so I did make it back. And then when I landed and got to my parking place and shut down the engine, here comes my prop right in front of my face, and it has a big hole in the 50 caliber. Oh, so that was sort of exciting.
And what was the manufacturer of that propeller?
Yeah, I was thinking, well, how did a hole that small cause the aircraft almost to fall apart? But just get that prop to that whole thing out of balance.
Well-made prop.
Yeah. So that was one of the. I had a couple other close calls. On one mission, we were on the Chodo Cap, and we were called that troops in contact. The weather was really, really stinking, and so we get to the area, and normally you'd have a FAC, a forward air controller, airborne FAC, and a T6, and they would direct you to the target, and then you'd go bomb it. But we didn't have that, and we didn't even have the Army didn't even have a liaison a spotter plane. So all I was getting information from was by radio from the guy on the ground, and he tried to explain where it was. I thought, well, I think I thought it was, but I told my flight to orbit over there, and I went down, and I said, I'll put a couple of rounds in where you're talking, and if it's the right area, I'll bring the troops down, the rest of the aircraft. So that's what we did. And we were able to get about 90% effectiveness and 21 KIA credit from the ground troops. So that was and that just gives you an idea of what the weather was. And the weather, this is during the middle of the winter, December. I flew there from December until the last mission was in June, and the mountains area was really, really bad. So you'd go down into the valleys, and then you'd come out, and you'd just really barely make it over the mountains coming out of there. And so it was and if you had weather, it was really, really bad because you didn't know, what was behind the weather. A lot of mountains. Then I had another mission there where I it was a napalm run, and it was we were after troops in trenches along a mountain ridge, and so we go and do the napalm run, and the napalm run is good. We got real good coverage, and then it came around for the rocket run. Well, the rocket run you have to really stay straight and level because there are no guidance systems for the rockets. It was where your plane was going. If you were in a skid, the rockets could go off with the skid. So you had to be real, steady and straight and level, and when you fired the rockets. Well, I fired my first two rockets, and then on the third one, I just pulled the trigger in. I got a small caliber up through my wing root and splattered blew the canopy, and then it hit behind my armor plate, and I reached up, and I see my hand is full of blood, so I'm bleeding profusely from my face. So I call my wingman and say I'm hit and I'm going back, and I call the tower saying I'm hit, and I don't know how bad it is, but unfortunately my wingman had lost his radio, so I had to do it by signals, and we got signals, and so I wobbled my wings, and he came in, and we get back to and of course he doesn't know that what's going on with me. He just knows he doesn't have a radio. So we get over the field, and he peels off and lands before me. Well, he lands, and all the meat wagons and the fire engines are following him down the runway. So I land nonchalantly without any fanfare and go back to my parking spot, and I cut the engine. I'm down in my cockpit, cleaning up the maps and stuff that are on and trying to wipe my face clear. I look up, and there's my crew chief there standing, waiting for me. And he sees me, and he slips off. But what happened was when the canopy blew, thousands of pieces of plexiglass, and it just inundated the cockpit, and I got lots of plexiglass in my face. I spent the next probably 6-7 hours with the flight surgeon picking out plexiglass from my face. But I flew another, I think it was 2-3 days later, I flew another mission.
Wow,
you're exciting.
2 or 3 days recovery. Nowadays, that would be like a month or something like that.
Yeah. But the main thing that concerned me in Korea, and I was the training. I was a World War II guy, hadn't flown since World War II, and the fighters. And the guys we were getting in were guys who were recalled and hadn't flown since World War II, and they were, getting in, and we were having a lot of losses because of lack of proper introduction into the combat area, and they were flying the P-51, which of course there was an entirely different role in World War II, like I said, and they were doing a mission that they were just not, but like I had never dropped a bomb or shot a rocket or anything before Korea in the 51. It was purely air superiority type of flying. So anyway, we were having, and so I developed a training program and talked the commander into let me implement it. And it was a 10-step program. They flew 10 missions, and not combat, but the first 8 missions were learning how to drop napalm and learning how to drop bombs and how to navigate at low altitudes and this sort of stuff. And then the last 2 missions were combat missions with 2 experienced pilots. And after that, then they were cut loose and we reduced the number of casualties we had substantially. So that was my really clean. The thing that I felt best about during my Korean tour. Then I flew 76 missions and was headed home in July. Got kicked out of stopped off at Hawaii, and there were 4 of us from the group, and we got kicked out of the Royal Hawaiian for singing rowdy songs while we stayed in Hawaii.
Man, there's so much like rich history you have. You could almost do like write a book about probably every week or 2 of that. There's so much information and experiences.